Okay, this is where we took the Christmas song. This is the arrangement that we are looking at the first four measures of, and it's been over the steps that we've done in our blog posts over the last 8 steps. So here in the 9th one, we're just going to review all the different steps we went through. So we'll start with our first basic melody that we can see in the post here, and I'll play through the melody without using any of the chords so we can just hear how the basic sound is. So it's a nice little melody. So the first thing we did is we added the bass notes to the chords that were written to the fake music. And in this case, we can run across it. We can see where we had the E flat major 7, so we added the E. For the F minor 7, we added the F. In the G minor 7, we added the G. In the E flat major 7th, we added the E flat again. And on our final measure with the 8 flat major 7, we added the A flat. Now I hope you're looking at this on your screen, because it's awful hard to see here in the video, but let's add the bass notes and play the same melody again to get that sound. Oh, let's start again. Here we go. So a basic sound with the bass notes in there. What we did in the next step is we decided to add the 7th intervals into our bass chords. In this case, we added the D for the E major 7th. For the F, we added the E flat. Here in the G7, we actually added the F up in the treble clef because it's right next to the G, so right next together. We can hear that bump note. Over here in the 3rd measure, we added another D for our E flat, and finally we added a G for the A flat major 7th. So let's hear that sound in this one. So that added a new quality, adding the 7ths, just reviewing. Had a pretty basic sound to it. In our next step, we went through and added additional chords into the fake music. Now let's spend just a second looking at that. In our measures 2 and 3 from above, these 2 measures up here, we're going to move on down and look at 2 more of the measures, get a little bit more in our steps. And we can see in this case where we added the C 7th, F minor 7, B flat 7, where we had our E flat major 7th before, we moved on down a B flat minor 7, an E flat 7, and an A flat major 7th. Now what we talked about was movement and motion of chords. And one way to look at it is if we took the actual end and worked backwards, we could see a backwards movement from A flat to E flat is definitely moving a 5th apart. Back to B flat is another 5th, and B flat back to E is a 4th. Working on back into measure 2 from E flat to B flat is another 5th backwards. And then this is moving from the B flat back to F again is another 4th backwards, or a 5th forward. And from the F to the C is another 5th. So we notice that we got a lot of progressions here in 5ths, and this is pretty common because we can see the G7, minor 7 to a C7, an F minor 7 to a B flat 7 into an E flat major 7th. It's very, very common progression, a 2-5-1 progression. And here we do the same thing. So in our last one's the E flat, so it's almost a very similar progression. So those are fairly easy to add in, and these are the ones that we said that Mel Torme added in. So that made our life a little bit easier, but we can at least analyze it and see what happened there. Now as we move on down to the last step on this page, adding more bass notes to the 7ths, we did is we came up with the idea of, we can add some more of these 7ths in this progression and see where they end up. So our G7 to the C7 to the F minor 7 to the B flat 7 back to our E flat major 7 back into our B flat 7 E flat 7. And if you remember the step that I actually had that as a major 7th rather than the dominant 7, but you can see that that 7th chords was the basic G7, C7, F7, D flat 7, E flat 7, E flat 7, E flat 7, and we're going to end up on an A flat 7. So that takes us through our first step of these, and then we're going to move on into our next step. Let's get refocused. Let's see. So we defined some new chords in our steps here, where we went from that last one and added these in, and we actually come in here and we can see that we've actually taken an F minor 7 and we've now made it an F minor 9, because the G is the 9th interval of the F chord. So that's pretty typical, and the G on a B flat is the 13th. So if we add that's your B flat 13th sound. And we went ahead and we actually identified that as the E flat major 13 on this one as well, and an E flat 9 as we went on into our 4th chord to the A flat. So now in the next step after that, we went ahead and we decided to smooth out the bass lines, and we can see where we added the bass lines and tried to make a nice smooth line coming on down to our A flat in our 4th measure. So we went and looked at measures 2 through 4, basically going 2 through 3 to get to 4, and that bass line started at G. We went to G again, went to F, F, E flat, E flat, D flat, B flat, A flat. Was the bass line that we had chose to try and smooth these chords out. Now as we play those bass chords, the G7 into our C7, our F7 to the B flat 13, again to the E flat major 7, to the B flat minor 7, nice sound, and then finally into our E flat, and into our A flat. So we can play through that and get all the notes into this one and hear a little different sound. So we added quite a bit of character by adding a few extra notes in our bass line just to smooth it out. And we went through the process of identifying which intervals those were. And, you know, quite frankly, we added a 5th here in this one and another 5th here. We kept this one pretty much the same, and then we added a 2nd note here where we were just taking a 1/2 note before, so we could actually add some additional chord changes if we wanted to. Added the minor part of the minor 3rd in our B flat, and we added a 5th here on the bottom of our E flat chord to finally get to the root note of the A flat chord. So a smoothing of the bass line in that step. In our next step,